Hello and welcome. My screen name is Covert Muffin, and this is going to be a submission video for Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos, the Undead campaign. Yes. So if you've never seen Warcraft 3 before, it's an RTS game made by Blizzard. So real-time strategy games require a lot of control of multiple different units in sort of utilizing resources while we control these units across the map. So the idea of macro mechanics where you're taking care of resources behind the scenes in order to build more units and make them stronger, as well as controlling these units here, right? So I'm bringing this shade down to get vision a little bit quicker to use an ability that Arthas has. So that being said, Warcraft 3 is very unique in sort of its RTS mechanics where it heavily favors the micro side, so controlling your units to most efficiently apply as much damage as possible. So like here, this hero unit I have, Arthas, has a lot of health, it deals a lot of damage, and it has different spells that it can end up casting. Right now, all we know is Death Coil, which is going to allow me to deal damage to human units, because in the story I've forsaken my humanity, Frostmourne has devoured my soul, as we're picking up right at the end of the human campaign, right? And, but also here, I just leveled up a new ability, which is Unholy Aura. It's a passive that gives Arthas, as well as everything around him, plus 10% movement speed, as well as a little bit of health regen. So that health regen is going to give me some nice sustain, but also the movement speed, as you imagine, allows me to get from point A to point B quicker. Just like in this mission, where the primary objective is to go around and collect these red acolytes before progressing on. Yes. So Warcraft 3 also is really nice in that there are these these missions just like this, where very micro-intensive, right? I want to kill off very specific units and progress and really not attack unneeded things and get the fastest acolytes, right? There's multiple acolytes on the map, and so I want to make sure that I'm routing in the shortest period of time. But that being said, you'll also notice that Arthas has an inventory, right? So right here, you'll see that, or excuse me, in the bottom of your screen over on the right, you'll notice a bunch of green potions and then like a silverish blue potion. The green potions are health potions. I just use them. They're one-time use, and it gets some health back for Arthas. Also, the mana potion, or the bluish potion, gets me mana and allows me to use more Death Coil, because you'll notice under Arthas' portrait, there's a green and then a white meter. The green one's health, white one's mana. And that's going to be very, very important in upcoming missions, where health and mana expenditure are going to be uniquely utilized, especially since items are carried over from mission to mission. Oh, yes. So a slight difference is from the Human and the Undead campaign is there are a lot more sort of these like CG, micro and macro-esque missions, whereas in the Human campaign there was very, very little macro, except for that one big mission, right, Mission 5. In this one, I'm going to get a new unit, the Meat Wagon, which is going to be our siege unit. It's going to deal a lot of extra damage to buildings. Here, what I'm doing is I'm stopping the Meat Wagon right before I cross the trigger in order to aggro this Paladin. If I had crossed that trigger, this Paladin would have been coming with a lot of footmen. So I would have had to take a really long and a really difficult engagement, right? But just because I am fighting this Paladin, I can just peel off my ghouls as they get low on health and use the special ability that ghouls have, which is cannibalism, and allows them to eat corpses in order to regain health, right? So in this mission, I have to go around and kill a bunch of Paladins. However, as you see, there are these bases with a bunch of footmen, barracks that respawn, like make more footmen as I kill them off, and then some really crazy triggers, right? So I'm going to try and manipulate the Paladins into favorable engagements where they're not surrounded by a bunch of units, and then kill off the rest of the army units that I can't really get around. So like here, for instance, I'm Death Coiling this villager. That's going to cause the rest of them to change into militia, right? So instead of engaging the Paladin with all of these militia, right, that actually deal a fair bit of damage, I'm going to peel them off, aggro the footmen, by attacking the militia, and then just take a really nice clean engagement, right? Notice the splash attack from the Meat Wagons. Doesn't just attack buildings, also attacks units. And it damages my own units. The Meat Wagons have friendly fire. So utilizing the Meat Wagons in the correct way is very, very important. But here we go. This paladin has an ability known as Divine Shield. So when it has that golden shell around it, I actually can't deal damage, nor can I target the paladin. But here I'm actually manipulating the paladin back, because when he gets far enough away, he's going to try and run back to the barracks, run back to the 2 footmen that are back there that are ready to help him out. But there we go. After his Divine Shield comes off, he's going to end up aggroing the rest of my units. So trying to get as many ghouls in there as possible in order to deal damage to the paladin to most quickly take him out. And they're using 2 of those health potions on Arthas to heal him up right before he dies. Nicely done. And these meat wagons are actually, it's actually okay if they die, because the most important units are the ghouls. I do not want to lose like any ghouls if I can have that happen. But I'm going to end up doing something a little creative with those meat wagons. You notice that I was able to aggro that paladin by attacking a building right at the beginning of the mission. Well, same works for other units, like specific units on the map. So what I'm going to end up trying to do is in this bottom base right under here, there's a paladin with a ton of footmen. There's like 5 or so, as well as a knight. And knights are really, really tanky and really, really scary, right? Like this one knight here, it's really good to just engage him by himself. But taking out those trees with the meat wagon is now going to open up that barracks, so I can start attacking that barracks. But those thin lines of houses, apparently the footmen can actually see through the houses. So here, I'm just going to wait with Arthas and the ghouls while I do a little bit of macro here with the ziggurats for supply. This base building is required in the mission. I then aggro these footmen forward, wait for them to walk far enough over, and then I just continue to take these small engagements with the footmen before moving on in Paladin. And boom, I got the successful manip, so that's really awesome. That's good. I was really happy with getting that. Sometimes the footmen can be a little finicky, and they'll just end up running back. But there's sort of like a backup aggro you can do on the Paladin here in order to get him far enough away from the footmen where they're not too much of a problem, but it still can be a little scary. But yeah, see, so the knight's just going to get aggroed anyway the moment I start attacking that paladin. Look at that. There is 1 extra footman, right? So because he was far enough away, though, he was pretty late getting to the fight. And, oh, no, I'm losing ghouls here. That's definitely not what I want to see happen. But because we have those 2 crypts up now in the base and the ziggurat's done, that's actually okay, because I now can end up making more ghouls for the final engagement, who is going to be against Uther Pendragon. And if you recall from the human campaign, Uther is going to be sort of the mentor character for Arthas, who was originally Prince of Lordaeron, right? So, as Prince, we, in order to save our entire country and our land, we decided to go off and find out Frostmourne in order to have the power in order to be able to kill off Dreadlords, right? In order to save our kingdom and stop the Scourge from ravaging our lands. However, Frostmourne, it ended up being a trap. We were totally jebaited into it, and Frostmourne consumed our soul and then made us work for the Scourge anyway. So here's Uther, who's chewing us out for forsaking our humanity, and he is going to be the final boss of this level. So just like the second paladin, he has Divine Shield, so we kind of just sort of wait for that to go off, and oh no, the critter is in the way. There are these neutral critters, and I'm trying to keep these ghouls alive, but it's okay if I don't. I just need to try and get in enough damage, and I don't think I get the quick kill here. I think I'm 1 death coil short. My death coils were a little bit late. Am I gonna get it? Oh man, I actually got it. Oh wow. That's pretty funny. So if you miss the first death coil, if it's even just a little bit late, Uther can end up spinning up Divine Shield again, and that's right, you have to wait for another 30 seconds. So very, very fortunate not to have that happen. Now, it looks like that's going to be a nice 6-minute time, sub 7 minute for level 2, and that's a decent time for me. I definitely can do a lot quicker than that, but just losing a few ghouls here and there, and then just taking some of the engagements really, really safe. Definitely good for a marathon run to do something like that too. So here we go, we're on mission 3. This is going to be a mission where we actually end up not having to build a base whatsoever. But we are going to still build some structures and utilize them for probably one of the flashiest and craziest sequence breaks in the entire speedrun. The even levels end up actually being really scary, right? Like that second level was actually insanely difficult. Each one of those paladins, very easy to accidentally mess up the manips. You saw how quickly the ghouls were dying, right? And so the even missions in the Undead campaign, even numbered missions, excuse me, are usually the scariest, whereas the odd ones can have some like flashy stuff to them, or just some like relaxing macro until you just build an army and go do a thing. But here we go, we destroy the trees, which aggroed Sylvanas Windrunner, Ranger General of Silvermoon. And so if you know Sylvanas from World of Warcraft, yeah, she's not corrupted yet, so this is the actual High Elf Sylvanas as we're invading her homeland, and I accidentally lost the ghoul there. That's really unfortunate. I really want to keep those ghouls alive, and because I didn't quick save right before this engagement, I'm deciding that instead I want to just take this engagement with the 4 ghouls, but hopefully I don't lose another ghoul. That could be rough, but oh no, Sylvanas actually ended up changing her aggro pattern onto the lowest health ghoul, and I healed the wrong one because of that. And so, very unfortunate. Losing 2 ghouls there actually makes the rest of the mission really, really difficult, because there are 3 more big engagements I have to take. So, taking a mission that was usually pretty relaxing in general and making it a little bit more stressful. So there I built a building that's a necropolis. That's our kind of like our main building for building acolytes, who are our resource gathering deuterinos. But we're not going to be gathering gold or lumber with that building. Instead, what we're going to be doing is using it sort of as a meat shield. There's going to be an attack wave that's just going to spawn, and it'll attack the necropolis, and when it dies, it'll just turn around instead of continuing to chase my army. But here we go. We arrived at a shop. In the shop, we can actually exchange gold for items, and this is going to be playing a huge role for the rest of the speedrun. And just like I can purchase items, I can also sell them. So in this map, where I actually am not collecting any resources, having the shop at my disposal is really cool. So there we also have the Necromancer, which turns a corpse into 2 skeletal warriors. And then I'm going to end up bringing my meat wagons down and destroying these boxes. You'll also notice I have an Acolyte in the right of your screen, right? And like, he's not actually attacking anything. The reason is because we're going to build a second necropolis. And this necropolis is going to have a very specific person. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But there we go. Putting that down, that is absolutely key to this mission. Oh my goodness. So just like I sort of talked about in Mission 2, there's also a bunch of triggers all throughout this mission. And you don't really want to cross them, right? Because they spawn Sylvanas again, and or a bunch of army units. And that's more stuff I have to kill off. And I did not build a base, so I cannot resupply my army. So it's very important that I skip as many of these triggers as possible. And it just so happens that this item here, the Scroll of Town Portal, is extremely broken on this map. And so I'm really excited to show this off, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so there for leveling up, just Death Coil 2, Unholy Aura 2, right? Unholy Aura, when you continue to level it up, as you'd imagine, it gets me more movement speed and more health regeneration. And then as I get a higher level of Death Coil, it deals more damage to those non-undead targets. And it heals Arthas for more life, right? Etc., etc. Oh, excuse me. There we go. I also picked up an item, which is going to be this book or this tome, and that is going to be a one-time use to spawn a bunch of undead units. Because the main objective of this mission is to destroy the sort of like army-producing structures and the main base buildings for the elf area, right? So how do I get there? Well, there's a few paths that I can take, I can walk on, but there are all these triggers that I don't want to cross, right? That would spawn enemies, and I don't want to do that. So instead, we're just going to set up a quick family picture here, because Arthas, after forsaking all of his friends and murdering them and betraying his entire kingdom, is feeling a little lonely, and so I just want to sort of celebrate and commemorate this moment with my new fam. But Oh my goodness. So with the town portal, I can aim it right next to the necropolis. And there, I accidentally double-clicked it, okay? So when you activate the town portal, it teleports you and your units to the necropolis. However, there's a certain radius you can activate this within. And that tiny little spot underwater ended up being within that radius. Because of that, that actually teleports all of my units into the elf base instead of to the necropolis, right? Because you do it within the radius of the circle, it teleports you to that location in that radius, okay? And so because I can't land in the water, right? Arthas is immune to taking baths. You end up instead just teleporting to the closest piece of land, and guess what? That's the elf base. So that's a really cool sequence break in a way that we end up skipping a huge portion of the mission and a lot of unnecessary engagements, right? There's like less than like half of the units here that I would normally have to fight just because I was able to do this trick. So really cool. Yes. Awesome. But yeah, here we go. So you're noticing that I'm just using the meat wagons to destroy these primary buildings, right? They deal siege damage, which deals extra damage to fortified armor types. And guess what? Buildings, yep, they're fortified armor types. So I definitely want to focus down the buildings with the meat wagons. Excuse me. And then clear out all of the units that would give my meat wagons trouble as I'm progressing through this destructive phase. But yep, there we go. I made it through, and well, like I said, like the odd number of missions, like they have these really flashy tricks. A lot of them do, and especially like this one with that exploitation of the town portal is really cool. But next mission is mission 4, and it's another Monka-S mission. It's another really difficult one, so we will get to that after this castle is destroyed. Oh yes. But yeah, so like I'm in the base and I'm like flahahaing and explaining stuff, and so probably at the end of this mission would be the first time for donations. Yes. Oh yes. Yeah, so they can like just be reading off donations and such as I'm preparing to move into this next mission. Yeah, so like this mission is really interesting. This is another one where it expects you to build a base. Right, so they give you these Crypt Fiends to help deal with flying units. They only have a ground attack, but they have an ability that webs flying units down to the ground. They also introduce us to Zeppelins, which are these flying sort of transport units in order to be able to get over bodies of water, right, and like rock faces and whatnot. And so there we go. I loaded my units in a very specific fashion into these Zeppelins. I have Arthas with all of the ghouls, the Necromancer, and then just the Crypt Fiend as a filler. And then we have all of the Acolytes in the meat wagon and the other Zeppelin with the Crypt Fiends once again as filler. And so over here we're going to bring the Zeppelin with Arthas, and this one is going to be important. We're going to be picking up a scroll which is going to give mana to myself and all of the units around me. And the Necromancers require mana in order to be able to turn corpses into undead skeletons. And for some reason, Sylvanas and the other Night Elves really hate skeletons. They get really spooked out by them. Because skeletons are really spooky, right? Not just like the undead creatures and horrors that are killing all of their friends and family, but skeletons are especially spooky for that purpose. So, that being said, having the Necromancer spawn a bunch of skeletons will actually keep the aggro of the NPCs off of Arthas and my other units. So first, I'm going to unload Arthas and the ghouls and the Crypt Fiend in order to kill off one of the Night Elves to create a body, right? Because Necromancers also have a high aggro priority, right? And then I'm going to unload the Necromancers, right? See that how Sylvanas started to attack the Necromancers? But now they're attacking the skeleton warriors. And so because of that, I can just end up raising dead bodies just over and over again, and creating some more with Arthas, and then take down these altars. Because on this map, the main objective is to destroy 3 of these altars, which are buildings, and then collect the item that drops from each of them, which is going to be a 1/3 of a key. It's the moon key to get us access to the end of the level. Also, you'll notice that I built another necropolis on the map. So over here, in the top right-hand corner of the map, you'll notice that the necropolis is being attacked. Sorry, bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you'll notice the mini-map. But that's okay, the Necropolis will survive for us to use another town portal in order to get us to the end of the mission really fast. And there I carved a little hole in the trees with the meat wagon. That's very, very particular spot. Just far enough so that the Night Elves can't quite see me, but close enough for the High Elves to be able to kill that meat wagon at the end of the mission. Very, very important I do that. So now that I picked up the first key, I'm going to be bringing Arthas over to this meat wagon, using the Crypt Fiends in order to body block and also sort of take the aggro away off the meat wagon so it can continue to attack this building, right? Meat wagons deal more damage to buildings, so I want it to stay alive for a little bit longer. I also don't want Arthas to take a lot of damage here, right? And this is a difficult portion of the mission. So there what I'm doing is just loading Arthas back into the blimp in order to keep him from taking damage while the meat wagon continues to do work. Then using the Acolytes to heal the meat wagon if they take damage. And then I'm looking for the other Zeppelin, which has more health. And there it is. Okay, nice. And Arthas has high enough health, so this is completely good. So 2 out of the 3 keys we currently have in our inventory. This last one's going to be interesting. I mentioned that I actually wanted the meat wagon to end up dying, right? So you'll notice my supply count in the top right-hand corner. The Necropolis gets me 10 supply, and then I let my units die in those 2 engagements in order to free up supply. Because here is a mercenary camp. As long as I have the resources and the supply to facilitate them, I can buy these goblin sappers. So really fascinating that I wanted my units to die quick enough. And so they have this kamikaze attack, which with 2 of them will end up destroying that altar. Then, double activating the Scroll of Town Portal brings me to the closest Necropolis, the only one on the map, which is immediately next to the end of the mission. And oh, the sorceress ended up casting slow on me, but I have enough health that I'm not worried about dying before I reach the end of the mission. Yeah, GG. This is so cool. I was so relieved in that run to get through that mission that cleanly. But just lots of quick saves in order to guarantee that I get through. And just make sure I take really clean engagements. Because as you can imagine, Sylvanas and the other High Elf characters can actually be a huge pain, a huge thorn in my side. But nicely done. Very, very clean mission 4. One of the more difficult ones for me. Oh my goodness. But yeah, here we go. We're on mission 5. Mission 5, Sylvanas is going to come back, so we're going to raise some more spooky skeletons again in order to spook her and this attack wave into attacking them instead of Arthas and the Crypt Fiends. And so on this mission, we're going to have a base, and so we're actually going to be doing some macro. But as it so happens, it's the only attack wave that we actually have to end up defending, using Death Coil here in order to deal lots of damage to Sylvanas, and then just peeling back units as they take some damage. Not too difficult in terms of micro. Nice. And then what we're going to be doing is building a second crypt, which I already have started, and then researching the attack upgrade for the Crypt Fiends. The overall mission objective here is going to be destroying 4 huge golems, which deal massive amounts of damage and have a pretty decent attack rate as well. So I'm going to be massing up Crypt Fiends, being introduced a new unit, the Gargoyle, which is going to tank a lot of that damage, and then healing the Gargoyles with Arthas, with Death Coil. But here we go, we're going to be heading over to a Merc camp in order to kill off the Mercs, because every time you kill a neutral creep, right, think of Dota, right? Dota got this aspect from this campaign. It's going to get me some gold. So we're heading over with Arthas and what Crypt Fiends we have in order to kill that camp. And then also the leader of the camp is going to drop another mana potion, which is going to be useful just sort of as safety in other missions. The mana pots aren't required in this speedrun, but they just add for a little bit of safety. So nice to have them. Nice to have them. But yeah, boom, there we go. Taking out the gnolls. And there we go. We are introduced to our new army unit, the Gargoyle. We're not going to be building any of the Gargoyles because they don't deal a lot of damage to ground units. And so those golems at the end of the mission that we have to take out are indeed ground units. However, casually, I think the developers expected you to sequence break this mission by just massing tons and tons of Gargoyles and then just flying them in order to take out the golems at the end of the mission. And so because of this, the golems actually have aggro to the Gargoyles, right? So they will target Gargoyles before they target Crypt Fiends, before they target Arthas. So because of this, I can use that to my advantage and just have Arthas and the Gargoyles in one control group, then my massive amount of Crypt Fiends, which are going to be my damage dealers, and the Necromancer in the other control group. Just accidentally aggroing another Merc camp there, that's fine. They'll just de-aggro when we get far enough away. Yeah, no problem. So here I'm just waiting for the remainder of my Crypt Fiends in order to catch up. One's still lagging behind, but I'm going to start working into this base. The moment I kill that elf and enter this base, a bunch of units are going to start swarming from all over. And so my goal is to get past these pesky Dragon Hawk Riders, which can actually net my Gargoyles down. Oh no, they actually got one. That's a little bit unfortunate, but it just means that I have to take sort of a larger fight here. The Crypt Fiends are tanky enough, and I have Arthas who has a huge heal, so it's not too bad. It just loses me like 20 seconds or so, because I have to pick this engagement up before starting to work away at the Golems, who are just down into the right there. So yeah, just clearing up the Dragon Hawks, making sure I have my Gargoyles. Gonna kill this Priest because he'll just be attacking my guys, and then that's going to aggro one more unit, but that's fine. That unit isn't too much of a problem. So here the goal is for me to only aggro one of these Golems at a time, but I think I accidentally get two. Yeah, I accidentally get two. You only want to aggro one at a time here because they actually have this stun spell, which stuns Arthas. And if they stun Arthas at the right time, that stops my ability from being able to heal my Gargoyles, right? So there I lost the Gargoyle because the Golem ended up stunning me right before I wanted to heal. And there he goes. He's stunning me again, but luckily, plenty of time. And so after you take out two Golems, you can just march right into this area. These 4 towers don't deal enough damage to really spook us. And then just focusing down these Golems with the Crypt Fiends and Arthas. And that's it. That is Mission 5. So just like I mentioned, missions of the odd number are a lot more relaxing. In this one, it's just you're amassing a bunch of Crypt Fiends and then taking 1 to 2 big engagements, and that's it. And then up next is going to be Mission 6, and even-numbered missions, man. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so in Mission 6, we are going to end up going up against a bunch of orcs. This is just kind of like a side mission that they splash in. It doesn't deal too much damage. Deals too much in way of like story, but it introduces us to the lore of the orcs that were enslaved to serve the Burning Legion, right? And so there's still a lot of them and demon-worshipping orcs that are left over. And so they are guarding this demonic portal. And so we need access to this demonic portal in order to commune with Archimond, who is this huge demon we're trying to bring to Earth, right? Because the Undead Scourge is a servant of the Burning Legion, right? Which are a bunch of interstellar demons that are trying to take over all of the realms and all of the areas on the map and turn them into these burning hellscapes, right? And so the Undead Scourge is a servant and sort of a disease that they introduced to Earth after they failed to conquer it in the first place. And so with this, we have Kel'Thuzad, who is resurrected, right? We killed him in the human campaign, and now we have him back as a lich in order to do the summoning. But he needs to figure out exactly how and where we need to get the power in order to summon him. But yeah, here we go. This Blade Master here, an Orc hero, only one of those 4 is the actual hero. The rest of them end up being these mirror images, which don't deal damage, and they take extra damage. So that's how I was able to figure out which one was the correct Blade Master very quickly. And so now that I've killed off that first attack wave, I'm going to be moving out with Arthas, my Gargoyles, a new unit, the Frostworm, which is our tier 3 unit, right? It's our big, bad, crazy unit. I remember when I did these campaign playthroughs casually, when I got to this mission, I was like, build as many Frostworms as possible, right? But unfortunately, in this mission, Frostworms end up costing a lot of resources, and they take a lot of time in order to build, whereas Gargoyles, these crazy anti-air units, are going to be a lot more effective. So in this mission, what we have to do is we have to destroy the base that is surrounding the demonic portal, and that is in the top right-hand corner of the minimap there. And the rest of the bases we actually don't have to worry about at all. They're not important to the mission whatsoever. The other cool thing is that on this mission there are a plentiful different strats of varying difficulty. The segmented strat for this level is absolutely insane. There's more like Necropolis, Scroll of Town Portal shenanigans with running around with bare bones units and taking like impossible engagements, like having Kel'Thuzad tank all the damage while you just heal him with Arthas, and then just somehow barely clearing critical mass for the meat wagons to have enough time to clear it out. Then another common strategy, which is definitely useful for PB temps and such, is going to be where we end up building a slaughterhouse and getting some extra meat wagons, or just taking the meat wagons that we have and clearing out the base that's just underneath the top right hand corner of the map. Then if we do that, we can bring the meat wagons into the final base and destroy those buildings a little bit quicker. But as you imagine, there's a huge ground army there. There's buildings that replace that ground army really, really fast. And so instead what I'm going for is the safest and the slowest strategy, which is going to be massing gargoyles. So basically what I'm just doing here is I'm clearing out mer camps, right, to get some extra gold, and then I'm going to be selling off some items in order to get some extra gold, and that's going to allow me to build gargoyles a little bit sooner. That being said though, this mission, because it's sort of a waiting game until I get enough gargoyles, is going to be a perfect time to read like tons of donations. So probably what I'll end up doing is I took this to explain a lot of the nuances of the story and the mission from the get-go, but I'll probably like split that up because this is easily one of the longer missions, and sort of a lot less going on in the end once I hit critical mass with these gargoyles. Right, so I'd probably like throw it over to donations, and then when we pick it back up, I'm like, yep, the Crypt Fiends, I'm clearing supply in order to stay under a certain supply limit, right? Because like another aspect of the missions we didn't really get into is this idea of upkeep. So once we have higher than 40 supply, we end up getting less gold per turn-in from the Acolytes. Usually every time they mine gold, that returns 10 golds, right, per tick. However, if I have above 40 supply, that drops. That amount decreases, so I'm getting less gold over time. So you really want to sort of balance your supply to be able to start building gargoyles earlier, but then also pave the way to stay under that upkeep supply limit as long as possible. Then, when I reach above 70 supply, that's another one. That's another one where you end up making a lot less money. So I believe the first upkeep decreases, it drops it from 10 to 7 golds, and then the second one, once you hit 71 in higher supply, that is going to be 4 golds per turn, and excuse me. Oh my goodness. But yeah, so here's a great time for donations, right? Donations, donations, donations. Oh my goodness. But yeah, it's really cool. Like, this speedrun in general is just like, there's always a lot going on in these RTS games. So either it's going to be like, I can just shoutcast engagements really, really quickly, or I can end up just sort of talking about a lot of the things that go on behind the scenes in terms of like macro, micro mechanics. Then how units interact with each other, how they interact with space, right? What exactly am I doing here, right? I'm buffing up my units before I send them into an engagement so they take less damage. That gives them more sustain, right? There's an endless degree of things that I can end up explaining in order to just give like non-stop commentary. Man. Yeah, it's so good. So like here, what I'm doing is I'm just like putting the Frostworm and one gargoyle into a control group, and then bringing the rest of the gargoyles over here, because the scariest unit in the entire game is the Red Dragon, okay? And this is why this is Mission 6 is probably the scariest mission, like, ever, except for the final mission, which we'll get to in a few. because these red dragons are huge, they're massive, they deal tons of damage, and they have a ton of health. Not only that, but they have these warlocks, which buff them to increase their attack speed, and they debuff my units to weaken them, and make it easier for the red dragons to kill. So what I'm doing here is actually aggroing one of the red dragons further away in order to be able to kill it off before it can run back to safety. And so there I go, I got it there, and then one more red dragon to clear there before traveling further into the base, right? So this mission is all about massing gargoyles, clearing out everything that can damage the gargoyles, and then clearing out every single enemy structure. Because the trigger for the end of the mission is clearing out all the enemy structures. But there we go. There's a third red dragon on the map that I just have to clear out. But because I was able to clear out those other two, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, I'm going to be able to now go into their base and destroy the structure that produces these really scary units, right? So it's like, yeah, we have frostworms, but they have red dragons. Oh my goodness. Monka S. But yeah, here we go. The nice thing is that I can just sort of park my heroes out here. They're not doing too much in the engagement. If I just brought them into the base, this would chase in other bases, units, and whatnot. But then also just that entire ground army is going to end up killing me. So here I actually got attacked by a really scary attack wave. And the reason is because these guys have high priority of aggro onto units, right? So even though this necropolis is damaging them, they're going to be looking for acolytes. They're looking for ghouls to attack. And so I have to be very, very careful not to allow them to aggro onto my acolytes, right? Kill an acolyte, that is like 1/5, 20% reduction in my resource gathering, right? Don't want that to happen, right? And so there we go. I just like this decision making here, right? Just being very careful. The more units I lose here, the longer the overall I have to wait before the mission ends, right? I lose one gargoyle. I lose my frostworm. That is a lot of damage that is going to be taken off the board, and that can add seconds, that can add minutes to my overall mission duration. So even though I cleared all of the units that can attack air units, more of them can spawn, and so if I'm not careful, I can end up losing these gargoyles. Also, there's 4 towers in this mission that can also attack air units, and these towers I have to end up clearing. And that's right, they deal lots of damage, and they have a huge range, right? Just like in StarCraft Brood War, in Warcraft 3, towers have insane range. Like, look at that, that tower's just like pot-shotting my gargoyles from that far away. That's so crazy. But yeah, I'm just going to clear this barracks from the... I don't know how that catapult got down there. It did somehow, though. I'm going to clear that barracks out before progressing on, and I'm probably just going to take out the towers next. Yep, there we go. And so yeah, like this is another great spot just for donations. Like I said, like this mission is really, really spooky until you just hit critical mass with the gargoyles. And then you take out all the things that are threats to the gargoyles, and then you just kind of go on autopilot. And that's nice because mission 7, it is an odd number mission, but it's very easy to mess up the engagement at the end of it. So it's nice and relaxing where I can just like take a breather after all of those really intensive other missions. And then the final mission, mission 8 in the Undead campaign is the hardest mission of all, and it's like the most intense and it's the most packed. And so that's good because then we can like we would be able to clear out a lot of donations here during this period. And then I would also be able to just like relax and like not think about commentary, because I'll be like talking for the entire thing, like up to this point for sure. But yeah, here we go. An interesting thing also, because items transfer over between missions, I'm going to end up not selling those blades of attack, I believe. Oh, stretching. I'm going to end up selling those blades of attack in the final mission, because there's a merchant shop, and selling those blades of attack gets me 200 gold. And that'll be really, really nice. That'll be really, really nice. Because I am going to need all of that gold. So yeah, I considered selling, and I was like, well, I think I have enough room on Arthas, so I'm just going to end up selling those. Yeah, and that's what I do. The other good thing too here is that it gives me some extra room to like meme. And so I'm probably gonna like play off that Arthas betrayed like all of his friends and family and ended up like slaughtering a lot of his country folk. And so now in order to be like Kel'Thuzad, right? He only became friends with him because he murdered him. And it's just Arthas's way of making friends. I think I actually do end up having Arthas attack the Lich here, which is Kel'Thuzad. For the memes. Oh my goodness. So yeah, there I transfer the Blades of Attack. Just gonna clear out this wave. This is a benign wave. It doesn't matter at this point because we're right at the end of the mission. And then just making sure that I continue to have those units go around and end up clearing out the last of the buildings. Oh, yes. Yeah, so here, I take out the lumber mill and the stronghold last, or the fortress, for a really specific reason. After I take out the mill, what ends up happening is those peons end up running around and going up to the gold mine and collecting gold. However, because the gold mine has critical mass, instead what they'll do is try and build these burrows, right, as you see here. So it's important that I kill off every single structure. And if I take out this fortress and there's a burrow that's complete, I end up having to destroy it as well. And look at that. That peon is also repairing the fortress that I'm trying to destroy. So that's time that I can lose. So these peons can just be super duper trolly. However, the good news is that they have really low health. And then, excuse me, these burrows that are being constructed also take extra damage while they're being constructed. So that's a really nice thing, is that I can just destroy them really quickly before they end up ever being finished. And then here I just decide to clear out some of the peons in order to stop them from doing this really silly pattern. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and so there we go. The fortress is done, and that's going to proc the end of the mission. And, oh, yep, I ended up taking out the Lich as well. Boom. On to Mission 7. So Mission 7's another, like, mission where they give you a base, and we're not going to be using it at all. So here, the Archmages are trying to stop us from desecrating their source of power, right? This gigantic well at the end of it. However, that's the power source that we're going to end up wanting to use in order to bring this demon back into this realm, this world, right? So there we go. When I clear out these archmages here, that ends up stopping this huge debuff. That is sort of those purple flowing lights coming from the ground, right? And after I destroy the Archmage, that removes this debuff. And so if I don't remove this debuff, what will end up happening is that Arthas and the Lich end up taking a lot of damage as they're traveling through. And I want them as high health as possible when I get to the end of the mission. So here I clicked with the Lich to go to the end of the mission, and then I'm following closely behind with Arthas. Whoops, there I got a little bit too close, right? So the pathing of the AI got really confused, and so it stopped to let me go further. So because of this, I want to make sure that Arthas, who has the higher movement speed, is close so he doesn't take too much damage when we pass through these areas. But also, I don't want to be right on top of the Lich to confuse the AI and then cost myself time. So here, I think I make a misstep. Yeah, so I use a Death Coil, and I think I'm safe. So I try and reactivate Frost Armor to reduce the damage I take in the final fight. Yeah, and there I just got slowed by the Sorceress, right? And I say, maybe I can make this work. And then I saw Arthas immediately at half health. I was like, nope, just backloading to a quick save. And so this is a really nice thing for marathon safety, is that I'm just going to be dropping a lot of these quick saves. Unfortunately, that lost me about 30 seconds having to backload that quick save, but it didn't make me have to restart the mission. So very, very nice to have that capability to have that safety going to a marathon setting. But here we go. Arthas got boxed out a little bit. But I'm just going to reactivate Frost Armor on Arthas, and then we're going to head into the final fight. So here, my goal is to nuke down this Archmage as quickly as possible, but he has a lot of health, right? And these units deal lots of damage, so there I popped a safety item that I picked up on the first mission, which is a gigantic health potion, and that's going to guarantee that I'm able to cleanly take out this engagement. So nicely done there. That's really cool that, like, some of the safety nets that we pick up in the earlier missions, right, we spend like 1 to 2 seconds picking up these things, gets us either extra gold from selling things to shops, or it gets me extra safety in these really tight engagements. So even though I didn't get a clean engagement there, it was just guaranteed that I was able to finish it out because of that safety item I picked up in an earlier mission. Really, really cool aspect of this speedrun. But yeah, here we go. The final mission, mission number 8. If even missions are scary, it could be solely for this reason, which is this mission exists. If you remember from the human campaign, the really tense and scary mission was mission 5, where we ended up clearing out an auto-scroller survival mission before the timer ran out, right? So at the beginning of this mission, I'm supposed to survive for 30 minutes. However, because I'm a speedrunner, I don't want to wait for that timer to tick down. So, because of that, the game also has another victory condition. If you end up destroying every single enemy structure in their bases, you end up ending the mission quicker, right? So we can end up saving 10, 15, 20 minutes on this mission, right? And so this is extremely difficult because these bases, their units are extra strong, right? They're teched up, they have lots of power in them, right? And then they just have a huge standing army at each of these bases, right? And the standing armies are respawning, right? After you clear out the first wave of enemies. Guess what? They have lots of production structures that immediately start producing units. Also, if they decide to spawn an attack wave while you're in the base destroying stuff, you also have to deal with that attack wave on top of that massive army. So it's just absolutely insane. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm building tons of meat wagons in order to deal with the buildings. I'm going to be building a lot of Crypt Fiends once again because they're a really, really strong and potent army unit to clear out units. And then here I'm going to be getting Scrolls of Healing, which gives me a nice AoE heal. And that's just for a bit of safety, right? But also on this mission, they give me another item to help me do this really insane thing of clearing out these bases, which are going to be goblin landmines, and they're crazy. Normally, they're sort of like a proximity mine. You lay one down, and then an attack wave comes in, walks over the proximity mine, boom, it explodes, and it like kills all the units. However, I can equip them on Arthas, and I can attack them with Arthas. And because the goblin landmines won't be dealing damage to me, right, to Arthas or any of those units, I can end up putting them down in the enemy base. Not only are they useful for clearing out armies, but they also deal tons of damage to buildings and structures as well. So it gives me a little bit of wiggle room and like buffer room to deal some extra damage to structures, clear the first waves in these bases, and then continue to progress on through. But that being said, while I'm trying to do this, all of the enemy units in the base will be attacking Arthas, right? They will be trying to stop me and kill me, right? And so it is extremely difficult. Anyways, for a bit of background for the macro, beginning of the level, I unsummoned some buildings. I'm getting the attack upgrade that ends up giving my meat wagons extra damage because it really significantly, it adds +1 to the minimum damage and +20 to the maximum damage. So if I get 2 upgrades, that's +2 to 40 damage each attack. And that's a lot. That's a lot, right? And especially because siege damage, which the meat wagons do have, ends up being very effective against structures and whatnot. So here we go, I'm bringing Arthas over to collect the 4 stacks of the goblin landmines, continuing to macro up and build additional meat wagons. And then I have an extra Crypt Fiend or 2. Then at certain timed portions of this mission, we'll actually just get reinforcements. They'll just spawn right at Kel'Thuzad. And most important are going to be the Fellhounds, right? We get a bunch of Fellhounds, which are these really great melee attack units with a mana burn, so they can use a spell on an enemy spellcaster, which ends up removing mana as well as dealing some extra hurt. Oh, yes. But here we go. So I'm going to wait for one more attack wave, and then when I see the first wave of Fell Hound reinforcements spawn, that's going to be my cue for beginning to take these engagements. But there we go. I'm also loading up some corpses on my meat wagons. This is going to come into play, right? Necromancers can use corpses to turn them into skeletons, right? And as we all know, skeletons are very, very spooky. So here we go. Here's the final attack wave before I begin to engage the first of 3 bases, right? In Mission 5 for the human campaign, there was only 2 bases, but I have to clear out 3 bases, and the last one is the scariest. Oh my goodness. The order that we do these is we're going to do the base on the right, follow the base on the left, and then the final base is top and center on the map. But here we go. We have the Fellhounds now, so I'm going to end up raising the intimidation factor of my army by raising some skeletons using this Necromancer. Right, here we go. And then I'm going to be running in with Arthas and these skeletons. As I mentioned, they really don't like these skeletons. So even though Arthas is laying down like nuclear explosions in their base of these landmines, they're not going to care. And instead, they're just going to be super spooked out by these skeletons. So here we go, bringing Arthas and the skeletons, and I quick save right before the engagement, right? Because this is actually very difficult and very time sensitive. So there's the first landmine. Boom! It clears out the priest and deals a lot of damage to those knights. And then I go back for the ranged units, clear out a lot of the militia and the peasants, and then one more landmine. Oh, get it? I got it. And so that cleared out pretty much all of the knights. It cleared out the enemy hero, which can cast a huge AoE spell known as Blizzard. And then now I'm going to be bringing in the Crypt Fiends to deal with the rest of the army units, as well as start taking care of the reinforcements, and then use the meat wagons in order to destroy the structures. I am on a timer here, literally and figuratively, right? The longer it takes me to destroy these structures, and the more meat wagons and army units I lose, that's right, the enemy NPCs have like infinite resources, and all these production buildings are in full spin right now, producing knights, producing more riflemen, more priests, more sorceress, and they will like pretty much fill the base within like a minute or two if I am not careful. So I have to be able to stay at critical mass with Arthas and these crypt feeds for long enough for these meat wagons to be able to burst down these buildings. And so right now, I just cleared the first production structure, right? All of this has been non-stop micro to try and keep things alive, right? Boom! I saw that footman going for the meat wagon. Take him out immediately. Do not let them target the meat wagons. And all, like, during this, I'm continuing to spawn more units. There! I wasn't fast enough. That knight was able to catch up with the meat wagon, aggro onto him, and take him out. And so that is lots of damage I'm losing. Damage per second, right, of buildings to be able to take out. So not only am I losing time for, like, because I have to clear out all these buildings in order to win the mission, but also it allows the enemies to spawn more units. It allows them to then buy themselves more time, right? The more units that pop out, the harder it is to clear out these bases. So it's really, really insane. It's so crazy to think that just one small misstep at any point in time just ends up like ripping this mission altogether to me. And I have to do 3 of these, right? So not only killing the units initially, but also continuing to clear them, and then drawing aggro off of these meat wagons, and then not losing too many of these crypt fiends, right? Too many of these crypt fiends die to those towers, right? Oh my goodness, that's right, meat wagons no longer have a safety net. Lose the meat wagons, lose the game. Oh my goodness. But there we go, I've hit critical mass on the first base, so now it's just going to be a simple feat of destroying the towers, and then destroying the castle, and then working my way out. And my goal is to finish this base before the next attack wave arrives, which will arrive at my top sort of cluster of spirit towers there, or the powered up ziggurats, if you will. But yeah, I make a judgment call. I say, okay, the next base is really scary, so I'm going to end up building a few extra crypt fiends to help me deal with their army units. Excuse me. Because the army units in the next base, it's really important that I'm at full supply when I go into the next base. because they have a lot of AoE attackers. They also have this flying unit, the gyrocopter, which usually when I arrive at that base, an attack wave is started to go attack my base that I have to also engage in order to get through that base. So that's extra army units I have to deal with. And I'm fully expecting to lose a good number of Crypt Fiends in the next phase. So just having that extra buffer room of these army units to help deal with them is very important. But there we go. The next attack wave is actually already there, right? So I must have lost a few too many meat wagons. Or I just didn't clear out buildings efficiently enough. So there I'm going to use the town portal from Arthas to help it deal with these two attack waves before they're able to destroy the ziggurats, which are my supply structure. That being said, though, this is like, the nice thing is that, like, during a marathon performance, I would be, like, freaking out and, like, super high octane, right, in each one of these engagements. But now this is sort of like the rebuilding phase, right, where I'm going back up to my 90 supply cap, which is max supply in Warcraft 3. And then I'm continuing to just finish up my cleanup, right? So there's one building left in that base that I have to take out. And then just organizing my units in a very specific fashion for the next engagement. And so then I would probably, most likely, absolutely, certainly, for sure, other words to say that I'm confident in the words that I'm about to say, throw it over for donations. Oh my goodness. This man, I still can't believe this, like, mission is possible. Oh my goodness. But yeah, there we go. Like, now that I'm at max supply, I can't, like, build more army units. So instead, I'm just going to be getting upgrades, right? And so there's still more donations being read. We'll probably throw it over for, like, 4 or so. Ugh. Oh, I'm so sleepy. Almost bedtime. Almost bedtime. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and so like here, right, I'm lining my Crypt Fiends up in a really specific fashion. Here I actually ended up forgetting the Necromancer once again, and I could have used the Necromancer to pull aggro away from Arthas again. But instead, I'm just going to end up using the Ghouls, and maybe a Fellhound or two. I think I just used the Ghouls. But yeah, nice thing here is that we can use these meat wagons in order to take out the towers, and that doesn't aggro the units in the base. But yeah, anyways, we're back from donations, so here I'm going to try my first attempt in an engagement into this base. Last time I was able to do it, first try with good landmine placement. We'll see if we can actually reproduce this as well. And I can bring the meat wagons up to start attacking things in the base. And then one more quick save right there. And oh no, there's that attack wave that was spawning. Oh man. And so that attack wave has all these extra units, right? Those riflemen are spread out from the other ranged units. And so here, I'm just tanking a ton of damage, right? These gyrocopters, which are really fast, and just swarming on Arthas. And then the landmines aren't taking care of them. And so here, I think I reload, because Arthas is, like, almost dead. Yeah, I do. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and so here, instead I say, oh my god, like, there's an attack wave there. And then, so what I'm just going to do is I'm going to aggro the attack wave with Arthas, and then end up just bringing up the Crypt Fiends to deal with them instead. Yeah, and there we go, right? Crypt Fiends using the web ability to bring down those gyrocopters to the ground. Then using one landmine, clears out those riflemen instantaneously. Nicely done. And now I can go back in and do this engagement once again. So here we go. I'm going to try and set myself back up. Yeah, just taking a second to re-macro, I say, okay, I cleared that attack wave, we're good to go. Quick save again, and let's take this fight. So there, yeah, this time, like, look how, like, how many fewer units there are in this base. And then, boom, an easy 2 mines takes out those knights and the enemy hero, and then I can just waltz in with my Crypt Fiends and my meat wagons in order to start laying hurt. But there's, like, a lot of riflemen, which are their ranged unit, the gyrocopters as well. that the landmines can't really clear out. And so having those extra crypt fiends is just so nice and gets me a little bit of extra buffer room in order to be able to run in and clear everything out. Nice heal there on the crypt fiend, right? Continuing to always macro my units. Oh, that meat wagon was getting focused by the riflemen. Quick, pull him back before macroing up, resetting my control groups as more units are spawning, clearing out these buildings before they can produce more units, right? I finally got into the building after clearing out like 4 towers, right? That would have been laying down non-stop hurt onto my army, right? It's very important that I keep that sustained. Then I see that mortar is ending up dealing tons and tons of damage to, oh, excuse me, my meat wagons with its AoE attack, so I have to pull back out and clear them, right? Death Coil heals Crypt Fiends, but it doesn't heal mechanical units, because meat wagons are not undead. They are just a walking, mechanized contraption, right? But yeah, here we go. So now I've hit a really nice point in this base. Really glad I set up that quick save and took a bit of a different approach to the engagement to deal with that attack wave and able to be able to get through. And now that we've hit critical mass, it's just very important that I split up my Crypt Fiends, right? I set them in high priority areas where units are going to be spawning that I want to clear out. And then I just continue to micro my meat wagons effectively to deal with these production facilities. There we go. It's another round of Fellhounds. So I have a ton of Fellhounds at this point, which is pretty good because they are a very potent unit for being able to clear things out. So a nice thing about like a unit that just spawned, that big like steam tanky thing you see rolling around as it's on fire, is it actually like can't target any of my army units. It can only end up targeting buildings. And so because it's not a problem, you can usually just like ignore it. Like that one there, I'm just ignoring while I deal with this tower with the Crypt Fiends, and then I'm taking the meat wagons to deal with the production facilities. Oh yes. But there we go. So this was a little bit slower for me for like clearing out these bases. I think I was on a bit fewer number of meat wagons than I normally am. Just clearing out that one in order to build a new meat wagon, which is going to then spawn at full health, right? For the final engagement. Because now that I've hit critical mass, it's just a matter of me making sure that I grab my safety items, right? For the final big fight, right? The final base. And here I'm in go mode, right? I'm focusing because the final base is easily going to be the scariest of the entire speedrun. Where in it, like each base had a theme, right? The first one was footmen and knights and like riflemen. This second one was like the steam tank, the gyrocopters, right? The dwarf units, the mortars, etc. And the last base is griffins, right? It's freaking griffins, man. And if you don't know griffins from Warcraft 3, they're the flying unit of the human. They are the tier 3 tech choice. And so they deal lots of damage, and they end up being pretty fast with their attack rate and flying as well. And there's like a dozen. There's like a dozen griffin riders in the final base. Maybe not that many, maybe like 8 or 10. But I have to both get past that initial wave, and then there's like 3 production facilities that are just non-stop spawning these guys the moment I kill the first one. Oh my goodness. And so here, oh man, I can't believe I did this in this run. I just goofed. So here I'm like bringing the units through this choke point, and just a little bit to the left in that base, there's a main exit way. I'm turning like bright red, like watching this, right? And this is why I wanted to submit this run. For the GDQ submission, because I have like really silly spaghetti, but I still land underestimate, like no problem. And so now I'm just waiting for my units to like single file filter through this choke point, right? You see that? Oh my god, the traffic jam. Oh my goodness. Oh man. But this is probably would be the last time for donations before the final base that I would be engaging in. Also, another thing for like marathon safety is like I'm talking up how ridiculously scary this final base is for good reason, because it is that scary. But another thing is that this mission has a bit of a safety net. At the 10-minute remaining mark until I just win casually, the game actually spawns 4 giant infernals, which are these magic immune, massive, high damage dealing units that are really, really tanky. And I get 4 of them, right? And so that makes clearing out the final base a lot easier. Definitely a lot easier. And a lot more forgiving as well. But yeah, they're those Griffin Riders, right? Like in an attack wave. So there I'm just setting up a save while I begin to set up my army units outside. I'm going to bring a few Fellhounds and the Ghouls and use Arthas instead for this engagement. And then waltzing them in, and oh, Arthas gets a little bit separated. I mess up my control groups there. I might end up quick loading back. Maybe not. That's a nice grouping for the melee units. We're going to drop 1 mine here to try and deal with the footmen. But I miss with Arthas attacking it, and oh no, the knights run away, so the mines don't actually end up dealing any damage to those knights, and so that is really unfortunate. I would not be surprised if I just quick load back here. I don't quite remember in this no reset I did. No, it looks like I'm just going to take the fight. This is really crazy, right? Not only are there a bunch of Griffin Riders, right, but bringing in those Crypt Fiends to net them down and start dealing with them. And I'm bleeding Crypt Fiends really fast here. They're dying really fast, so I need to get these catapults in. Also, there are like 3 towers that are immediately all attacking my army units. 2 cannon towers as well as a guard tower. But there we go. There are the big blazing fiends themselves, and that's going to be really nice having those infernals to help me clear out this base. But yeah, I was able to do it. I was able to get in and clear out the first wave, so we might still be okay. Bringing in these meat wagons, just losing a few of them is really detrimental, and unfortunately, even though I'm at 70 of 90 supply right now, that's still a lot of potential things I could make, but I can't because I've lost too many ziggurats at this point, because we're sort of in a base tradey scenario this late into the mission, so I can't build more meat wagons. So very important that I don't lose any more, and there we go, losing another one. So it's really crazy just how this, especially this final base, comes down to just not losing like any meat wagons in any of these units. In order to be able to get in and get through. And I might have accidentally overproduced a bit on the Crypt Fiends, and I had a lot more Fellhounds, I think, than I actually needed. But it's definitely nice to have that for like marathon safety especially. And then look at that, yeah, the Infernals are dealing so much work. They're doing so much work. Oh my goodness. And so now that we've hit critical mass, this will be like the huge celebratory like portion of this mission, right? Like all throughout the speedrun, there's going to be multiple points to cheer, and lots of "I got it" moments. But like especially this one is going to be really crazy. Like if I can pull off this mission in a marathon setting, that would just be absolutely insane to me. Oh my goodness. But yeah, there I have some extra mines on Arthas, so I'm just using them to clear out the hero before he can kill off my Crypt Fiends. And there's a cheeky rifleman is sneaking in the back lines. He's trying to be a little covert there. But yeah, there we go. Clearing out the altars so that the hero cannot respawn, and then I most likely will use this last lane mine, or I'll just clear out the last few structures remaining. Anyways, major shoutouts to Sajiki, who when he picked up the human campaign, he just like asked me, he's like, hey, like I know you have a lot of RTS experience with StarCraft 2. Do you want to help like do the human campaign with me? I was like, yeah, sure. And so he did like a lot of the routing, and then I ended up coming in and like finding a few things that saved like maybe 30 to 40 seconds overall in the run. Just a few like macro optimizations and stuff like that. And then here, shout outs to Savasuka, who helped me a lot when I was learning this one, and helped me figure out what would probably be the most marathon safe strats for me. But yeah, here it is. Time is coming up right now. Time. GG. That being said, thank you so much for watching this submission video. The nice thing about this campaign is that it is probably going to be the longest speedrun that I would perform at like a marathon event, but also there's definitely no shortage of commentary throughout all of these missions. Like mission 6 and mission 8 are nice because like very specific portions in the mission, there's like downtime when you hit critical mass. And so like I haven't had this where I have like this extra wiggle room to throw it over for donations, right? Like in all of the Star Wars speedruns and stuff, it's just like non-stop action, and I have to like cut out things to explain. But this has a really nice balance of having really in-depth and crazy speed deck and mechanics that we get to showcase, as well as time to be able to interact with the audience and the viewers who are going to be donating throughout the performance. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that. GG.